You have probably heard someone say, knock on wood. Maybe they said it after mentioning good luck. Maybe they said it after making a hopeful prediction. Or maybe they actually tapped a table, a desk, a door, or anything wooden nearby. It is one of those little habits people do without thinking. Someone says, I have never had a flat tire. Then they pause. Knock on wood. But why? Why would touching wood have anything to do with luck? And how did a small superstition become such a normal part of everyday speech? The strange thing is, many people who say it do not fully believe in it. They are not performing a serious ritual. They are not praying to a tree. They just feel like saying something lucky out loud might tempt fate. So they knock, just in case. I'm Earl, the creator of Everyday Sayings and Origins. To keep each episode consistent, I use my digital likeness. Now, back to the story. Today, knock on wood is usually used after someone says something positive that they do not want to ruin. You might say, my car has been running great, knock on wood. Or, I have not been sick all year, knock on wood. Or, everything is going smoothly so far, knock on wood. The phrase is a small shield against bad luck. It is a way of saying, I know I just said something good, but I do not want to brag too loudly. That is part of why it still works. It mixes hope with caution. It lets people be optimistic without sounding too confident. Because deep down, a lot of people have that tiny fear. If I say things are going well, will something go wrong? That fear is older than the phrase itself. People have always had habits for protecting good fortune. They wore charms. They avoided certain words. They made signs with their hands. They repeated short sayings. And in many cultures, they touched certain objects for luck or protection. Wood became one of those objects. One common explanation connects the practice to old beliefs about trees. Long before modern life, trees were not just background scenery. They were shelter. They were fuel. They were building material. They marked seasons. They provided fruit, shade, and safety. A large tree could feel powerful. It could live longer than a person. It could survive storms. It could stand in one place while generations changed around it. So it makes sense that many people saw trees as special. In some old traditions, trees were connected with spirits, gods, protection, or sacred places. A tree was not always just a tree. It could be a symbol of life, a place where divine power might be present, a marker between the human world and something unseen. From that kind of belief, touching wood could be a way to seek protection, or to show respect, or to call on good luck. That is one of the most common theories behind knock on wood. The idea is that people once touched trees to ask for help, thank a spirit, or avoid angering unseen forces. But as with many old sayings, the story is not perfectly clean. There is not one single moment where someone wrote down, this is exactly where knock on wood began. The phrase likely grew from a mix of old beliefs, habits, and later customs. That is why we should be careful about making the origin sound too simple. The tree spirit explanation may be part of the story, but it may not be the whole story. There is another idea that connects knock on wood to Christian tradition. In that version, the wood is linked to the cross. Touching wood becomes a way of calling on protection through a sacred symbol. That explanation also makes sense to many people because wood has strong religious meaning in Christian history. But again, it is hard to prove that one explanation accounts for every use of the phrase. Superstitions do not always come from one clean source. They often gather meanings as they move through time. A habit may begin one way. Then another culture gives it a new explanation. Then later, generations repeat it without remembering the reason. By the time it reaches us, the action remains, but the original belief may be blurry. That is exactly what seems to have happened with knock on wood. For many people today, the action no longer carries a clear religious or spiritual meaning. It is more like a reflex, a social habit, a small joke with a serious feeling underneath. And that is what makes it interesting. The phrase sits between belief and play. Some people really believe it helps. Some people do not believe it at all. Most people are somewhere in the middle. They know knocking on a wooden table probably does not control the future, but they do it anyway. Not because it is logical, because it feels safer than doing nothing. That is how many superstitions survive. They do not always require deep belief. They only require a tiny thought that says, why risk it? If the action is easy, people keep doing it. Knock on wood is very easy. It costs nothing. It takes 1 second. It does not require a ceremony. You do not need special words. You just touch wood or tap it. That simplicity helped the phrase last. There is also something satisfying about the sound. A knock is clear. It marks the moment. You say something hopeful, then the knock acts like a period at the end of the sentence. My flight has never been delayed. Knock knock. My luck has been good lately. Knock knock. It turns a thought into an action. That action matters because humans like to feel involved. When the future is uncertain, people often create small rituals to feel a little more in control. Even if the ritual does not actually change anything, it changes how the moment feels. It gives nervous hope somewhere to go. That is why knock on wood is not only about wood, it is about uncertainty. It is about the fear of saying too much. It is about not wanting good luck to notice itself and disappear. There is an old human idea hidden inside the phrase. Do not boast too loudly. Do not tempt fate. Do not assume tomorrow will go well just because today did. That feeling appears in many places. People say, do not jinx it. They avoid saying a game is over too early. They hesitate before announcing good news too soon. They worry that confidence might invite trouble. Knock on wood belongs to that same family. It is a way of softening a hopeful statement. You are not saying, nothing bad can happen. You are saying, things are going well, and I would like them to stay that way. That is why the phrase works so naturally in conversation. It protects the speaker from sounding arrogant. It also lets the listener understand the mood. Hopeful, but careful. Positive, but not careless. And because the phrase is so familiar, people know exactly what you mean. You do not have to explain the superstition. You just say it, or tap the table, and everyone understands. There is another detail that makes the phrase useful. It can be serious or funny depending on tone. If someone is genuinely worried, knock on wood can sound like a little prayer for luck. If someone is joking, it can sound playful. That flexibility keeps it alive. A phrase that only works in one mood has fewer chances to survive. But knock on wood works in everyday life, casual conversation, sports, travel, health, money, work, and even small talk. It can follow almost any statement about good fortune. That is why it keeps showing up. The exact old belief may be uncertain, but the modern use is very clear. Knock on wood means, I hope this good thing continues, and I do not want to ruin it by saying it out loud. That is a very human thought. People want to believe they have some influence over luck, even when they know they probably do not. And when a tiny action gives that feeling, people repeat it. Over time, the action becomes a phrase. The phrase becomes a habit. The habit becomes part of culture. So the next time someone knocks on a table after saying something hopeful, they are taking part in a very old pattern. Maybe not the exact same belief as the people who touched trees for protection. Maybe not the exact same meaning as those who connected wood to sacred power. But the same basic feeling is there. A hope for protection, a fear of bad luck, a little action to steady the moment. That is why this phrase has lasted. It does not need everyone to believe in magic. It only needs people to understand the feeling of not wanting to jinx something good. So, why do we say knock on wood? Because wood became a symbol of protection, luck, and safety across different traditions. Because touching it gave people a small way to respond to uncertainty. And because even now, when most of us know a table cannot control the future, the habit still feels oddly comforting. It is one of the smallest superstitions we still carry. A quick tap, a hopeful pause, a quiet way of saying, let the good luck continue. If you enjoyed discovering the story behind this everyday saying, subscribe to Everyday Sayings and Origins. Each episode uncovers the hidden history behind the words, phrases, rhymes, and traditions we use without thinking. I'm Earl. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next origin. Peace.